Today, we're going to discuss what is Nativist approach and the language acquisition device.
What is Nativist approach? The term nativist is derived from the fundamental assertion that language acquisition is innately determined, that we are born with a genetic capacity that predisposes us to systematic perception of the language around us, resulting in the construction of internalized system of language. According to Noam Chomsky, he claims that children are born biologically programmed for language and that language develops in the child in just the same way that other biological functions develop. And he believed that when the human brain is exposed to speech at birth, it will begin to make sense of utterances because it has been programmed to do so.
The language acquisition device. The language acquisition device, or LAD, is a claim from language acquisition research proposed by Noam Chomsky in the 1960s. The LAD concept is a purported instinctive mental capacity which enables an infant to acquire and produce language. To give you an illustration, LAD is just like an imaginary black box which exists somewhere in the brain. It is thought to contain all and only the principles which are universal to all human languages. But how does it work? For LAD to work, the child needs access only to samples of a natural language. These language samples serve as a trigger to activate the device. Once it is activated, the child is able to discover the structure of the language to be learned by matching the innate knowledge of basic grammatical relationships to the structure of the particular language and the environment. For example, a child is in front of his father and mother currently hugging and saying "I love you" to each other. The word "I love you" can be stored in the imaginary box and send a signal to him that "I love you" is being used to express a hug to someone. Here they begin to create their own words and able to discover a new language. More recently, Chomsky and his followers no longer use the term LAD but refers to child's innate endowment as universal grammar, or UG.
According to McNeil, LAD is made up of 4 innate linguistic properties. The first one is the ability to distinguish speech sounds from other sounds in the environment. Next, the ability to organize linguistic data into various classes that can be reformed. Third, knowledge that only certain kind of linguistic system is possible and the other kinds are not. And the last is the ability to engage in constant evaluation of the developing linguistic system so as to construct the simplest possible system out of the available linguistic input.
One of the most practical contributions of nativist theories is evident if you look at the kinds of discoveries that have been made about how the system of child language works. Research has shown that the child's language at any given point is a legitimate system in its own right. The child's linguistic development is not a process of developing fewer and fewer incorrect structures, not a language in which earlier stages have more mistakes than the later stages. Rather, the child's language at any stage is systematic, in that the child is constantly forming hypotheses on the basis of the input received and then testing those hypotheses in speech and comprehension. As the child's language develops, those hypotheses are continually revised, reshaped, or sometimes abandoned.
According to Chomsky, children develops language in a similar ways and similar time. In the way of children's rate of acquisition, environment have a big part to it. Jim Berko also said that in the pace of children's learning of language, he explained that it is not a series of discrete items, but as an integrated system. With the use of nonsense word tests, Berko discovered that on English-speaking children, as 4 years of age, they were able to apply the rules of the formation of plural, present progressive, past tense, third singular, and possessives. For example, if child saw one wag, he will easily say or he will easily think the word wags with S if he saw the two wag. That is the explanation of Jean Berko.
The three important contributions of Nativist framework to our understanding of the first language acquisition. First, freedom from the restriction of the so-called scientific method to explore the unseen, unobservable, underlying, abstract linguistic structures being developed in the child. But what is scientific method?
According to science book, it is the process of making a theory composed of 4 steps, such as observation of the problem, creation of hypothesis, testing hypothesis, and drawing of conclusion and refining the hypothesis. In other words, it is a complex procedures. But nativist theory is a different one because of its definition, innate language from childhood. Therefore, it stands that children are naturally knowledgeable of a specific language, and exploration or development of language depend on his or her actions.
The second is systematic description of the child linguistic repertoire, either rule-governed or operating out of parallel distributed properties.
Language development of child is either influenced by manipulator path, in which child alone is obligated to follow strict rules of original language like correct pronunciation, writing, and reading, because the environment expects that it will follow perfectly, or if not, criticism will fill child's ambience, or by self-experimental methods to enhance original language, depending on preference or ability of child, not by rules. You learn by your ways.
The third and the last one is the construction of a numbers of potential properties of universal grammar.
We all know universal grammar as innate language. If nativism will work toward the child, it will reflect to universal grammar. Or if not, nativism will remain stagnant. Example, when a child wants to learn more about own language, he or she will use an effective strategy, like reading. The effect of strategy will shape universal grammar.
I hope you learned something. Thank you.